The meeting room aboard the Resilience was crowded with beings Captain Day had never imagined existed. Admiral Quental was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. Beside him stood General Vex, a creature that looked like walking crystal, his body reflecting light in rainbow patterns. There were others too, representatives of species that had been fighting the Krellian Empire for longer than humanity had known about space. Travel. They all stared at the holographic display where Dr. Marasung was explaining human technology. "This is the quantum fold drive," she said, highlighting a complex diagram. "It doesn't move the ship through space. Instead, it folds space itself, allowing instantaneous repositioning across short distances. The energy requirements are enormous, but we've learned to harvest power from quantum fluctuations in the vacuum of space." General Vex made a sound like wind chimes. The translation system rendered it as shocked disbelief. "This is impossible. Our best scientists have theorized about quantum folding for centuries, but the mathematics always showed it couldn't be done." Engineer Taewoo grinned from his position at the back of the room. "Your scientists were right. It can't be done. Not safely, anyway. But when you're lost in space with failing engines and the choice is try something impossible or die, you learn to make impossible things work. How did you survive so long?" Admiral Quental asked. 180 years without resupply, without support. We lose ships after just a few years without access to proper facilities." Commander Yuna Kwan brought up another display. "We didn't have a choice. We had to adapt or die. We learned to recycle everything. We built hydroponic farms that could grow food using minimal water. We developed fusion reactors that could run on hydrogen harvested from nebulae. We created medical treatments from alien plants we found on asteroids. Every problem we faced, we solved it or we died." Captain Su Rin, commander of the colony ship Horizon's Edge, stepped forward. "Our children never saw Earth. They were born on these ships. They grew up knowing that survival meant innovation. Every generation had to be smarter, more creative, more determined than the last. We became something new out there in the dark." Myra changed the display again. "This is our adaptive shield system. Instead of just blocking energy, it absorbs and redistributes it. The more you shoot at our shields, the stronger they become. We developed it because we couldn't waste power on traditional shields." Admiral Quental S. Translator conveyed his amazement. "You're saying you created all of this out of necessity? In isolation?" "We had good teachers," Day said quietly. "Desperation and survival. They're the best motivators in the universe." There was a long silence as the alien commanders absorbed what they were hearing. Finally, General Vex spoke. "You said you want to help us. How?" Day looked at his crew, then back at the aliens. "We share everything. All our technology, all our knowledge, all our innovations. We help you retrofit your fleet with quantum fold drives, adaptive shields, neural link targeting systems. We turn the resistance from a dying force into something that can actually win this war." "Why?" Quental asked. "You barely know us. This isn't your fight." "Earth is gone," Yuna said simply. "Humanity's homeworld fell to the same empire that's killing your people. That makes it our fight. Besides, humans have a saying. Evil succeeds when good people do nothing. We're not going to do nothing." The next few weeks were a blur of activity. The Resilience moved to the Varro system's massive asteroid belt where the Resistance had hidden repair facilities. Taewoo and his engineering teams worked around the clock, teaching alien engineers human technology. Lieutenant Hannah Jin found herself training alien pilots in human combat tactics. At first, it was frustrating. The aliens flew their ships like they were driving ground vehicles, slow and predictable. But gradually they learned. The neural link system that let human pilots think their commands instead of typing them made a huge difference. "Don't fight the system," Hannah told a group of eager students. "Let it become part of you. Your ship isn't a vehicle you're controlling. It's an extension of your body. Feel it, don't think it." One pilot, a being named Krelver with 6 tentacle-like limbs, suddenly got it. His fighter moved through a training exercise with fluid grace, responding to his thoughts instantly. The other pilots watched in awe. Chief Scientist Gina Kwan, Yuna's younger sister, made a breakthrough in the third week. Captain, the neural link system is compatible with 3 of the 4 resistance species. We can mass-produce the interface units. Within a month, we could have 500 fighters equipped with this technology. The production facilities hummed with activity. Alien workers and human engineers labored side by side, building quantum-fold drives, adaptive shield generators, and neural link interfaces. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos. Everyone knew what was at stake. But not everyone was happy about it. Lieutenant Ho Min-ho and his Marine unit were conducting routine patrols through the asteroid facilities when they found something wrong. Supplies were missing. Security systems had been tampered with. Someone was sabotaging the work. Captain, we have infiltrators, Min-ho reported over a secure channel. Krellian agents. They've been here for days, maybe weeks. They're trying to slow down our progress. Can you find them? Day asked. Already on it, sir? The hunt through the asteroid tunnels was tense and brutal. The Krellian infiltrators were good, trained professionals who knew how to hide and fight. But Min-ho's Marines had learned to fight in the cramped corridors of failing starships, where every mistake could mean explosive decompression and death. The final confrontation happened in a storage area deep in the asteroid. 3 Krellian agents, cornered but still dangerous. They fought with energy weapons and what looked like poison gas. Min-ho's team used their armor's environmental seals and advanced targeting systems. When it was over, 2 Krellians were dead and 1 was captured. The captured agent was brought before Day in a secure holding cell. Through a translator, the Krellian spoke. You cannot win. The Empire has thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. You are 40 humans and a dying resistance movement. You will fail. Day looked at the alien with calm determination. Maybe, but we've been beating impossible odds for 180 years. We're pretty good at it by now. The agent laughed. It doesn't matter. Grand Admiral Varthok is coming with the 3rd Imperial Fleet, 800 warships. He will crush you all. After the interrogation, Day called his senior officers together. The news wasn't good. The Krellian Empire had realized the threat humanity posed and was sending overwhelming force to destroy them. 800 ships, Yuna said quietly. We have less than 200, even with the retrofitted resistance vessels. Quality over quantity, Tay argued. Their ships use old technology. Ours are better. Not 4-to-1 better, Nari pointed out. We can't win a straight fight. Myra studied tactical projections on her display. Then we don't fight straight. We use our advantages. Speed, surprise, superior technology. We make them fight our kind of battle, not theirs. Captain Su-rin nodded. The colony ships can be converted. Not into warships, but into carriers. We have the facilities. We can build fighters faster than capital ships. Lots of fighters with neural link pilots. How long do we have? Day asked. Quental S intelligence says the 3rd Fleet will arrive in 6 days. Yuna reported, 6 days to prepare for a battle that would decide the fate of the Resistance and possibly humanity's survival. 6 days to turn a desperate, defensive force into something that could challenge the Empire's might. Day stood and looked at each of his officers. Then we don't sleep for 6 days. Every person, human and alien, works on preparation. Tay, I need those full drives installed in every combat-capable ship. Su-rin, convert those colony vessels into carriers. Hannah, train every pilot you can. Miro, I need weapons, lots of them. Min-ho, I need your Marines ready to board enemy ships if it comes to that. And you, Captain? Quental asked, having entered the room quietly. Me? Day smiled grimly. I'm going to plan how 40 humans and a few hundred aliens are going to defeat an Imperial fleet 4 times our size. In the Krellian capital. Thousands of light years away, Grand Admiral Varthok received his orders. The Emperor himself had issued them. Destroy the human ship. Capture or kill every human. Make sure this species was truly extinct this time. Varthok looked at the tactical data on the mysterious human vessel. One ship had defeated 4 cruisers. It was impressive, certainly, but it was still just one ship supported by a failing resistance movement. 800 warships, he said to his second-in-command, for one human vessel and a handful of rebels. The Emperor worries too much. His officer wasn't so sure. The reports say their technology is far advanced, sir. Technology doesn't win wars, Varthok said confidently. Numbers do. Discipline does. We have both. They have neither. He had no way of knowing how wrong he was. The plasma bolt screamed toward the Resilience, a spear of superheated energy that would have vaporized a normal ship. Commander Yuna Kwan's fingers moved across her console without conscious thought, activating systems that hadn't existed when they left Earth. "Adaptive shields up," she called out. The plasma bolt struck the shield barrier and something impossible happened. Instead of exploding against it, the energy dispersed across the shield surface, absorbed and redistributed. The shield actually grew stronger from the impact, feeding on the hostile energy. The alien vessel hesitated, confused. "Return fire," Captain Day ordered. "Target their weapons only." "I don't want to kill anyone if we don't have to." Tactical Officer Narration locked onto the alien cruiser. The Resilience's weapons were different too, upgraded through years of experimentation and need. Railguns fired projectiles at a fraction of light speed, too fast for normal targeting systems to track. The alien ship's weapon arrays exploded in brilliant flashes. "Direct hits, Captain." "Their weapons are offline?" Through the viewport, Day watched the alien vessel limp away, trailing atmosphere and sparks. Around them, the massive space battle continued, but several ships had stopped fighting to watch the newcomer that had just disabled a cruiser in seconds. "Incoming transmission," Yuna announced. "Multiple sources. They're all demanding to know who we are. Can we understand them?" Dr. Meira Sung worked frantically at her station. "The computer is analyzing their languages. We're picking up patterns. Give me a minute." Her screen filled with alien symbols and sounds. The computer that had guided them through 180 years of isolation was now working to bridge the gap between species. "Got it," Meira said suddenly. "At least a partial translation. Captain, one of the groups is calling themselves the Resistance Coalition. The others are the Krellian Empire." More alien ships were turning toward them now. 3 large cruisers broke formation and accelerated in their direction. Their hulls bore the same markings as the ship that had attacked them. "The Krellians are coming for us," Hanajin reported. She had scrambled to the tactical station when the fighting started. 3 cruisers armed and closing fast. Engineer Taewoo's voice crackled over the comm system. "Captain, the quantum fold drive is ready." "We can use it." Day nodded. The quantum fold drive was their greatest achievement, born from desperation and genius. When conventional engines couldn't produce enough power, when they needed to move faster than physics allowed, Tay had invented something new. It let them fold space itself, appearing and disappearing across short distances. "Do it," Day ordered. The Resilience vanished. One moment it was directly in front of the approaching Krellian cruisers. The next it appeared 5,000 kilometers away, behind their formation. The sudden movement left the alien ships confused, their targeting systems searching for an enemy that was no longer where their sensors said it should be. "Fire!" Day commanded. The railgun spoke again. Projectiles tore through the rear armor of 2 cruisers. Not enough to destroy them, but enough to cripple their engines and weapons. The 3rd cruiser tried to turn, but Hannah launched a spread of missiles. These weren't ordinary missiles either. They moved with intelligence, dodging defensive fire. Working together like a pack of hunting animals, the explosions lit up space as the 3rd cruiser's weapons arrays were reduced to scrap metal. "All 3 targets neutralized, Captain," Nari reported. "No casualties on their side, just disabled systems?" The space battle around them had stopped. Every ship from both sides was now focused on the mysterious vessel that had appeared from nowhere and disabled 4 Krellian cruisers in under 6 minutes. In a war that had raged for decades, where battles took hours and victory was measured in small gains, this was impossible. "Captain, we're receiving a new transmission," Una said. "It's from one of the resistance ships. They're asking who we are and if we need assistance." They almost laughed at that. A fleet on the verge of defeat, outnumbered and outgunned, was offering them help. There was something admirable in that. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies. Let everyone hear this." The system crackled to life. Day took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would be humanity's first message to the wider galaxy. "This is Captain Hyundai of the Earth Colonial Fleet, commanding the vessel Resilience. We departed Earth in the year 2667 on a colonization mission. We've been lost in deep space for 180 years. We mean no harm to anyone, but we will defend ourselves if attacked." He paused, then asked the question that had haunted him since they arrived. "Can anyone tell us if Earth still exists?" The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, a voice responded, translated into rough but understandable Korean by their computer. "This is Admiral Quental of the Resistance Coalition. Captain Day, I regret to inform you that Earth fell to the Krellian Empire 150 years ago. Humanity is believed to be extinct. You and your fleet appear to be the last of your species." The words hit Day like a physical blow. Around the bridge, crew members stood frozen in shock. Earth was gone. Home was gone. Everything they had hoped to return to had been destroyed while they drifted lost in space. "That's impossible," Myra whispered. "Earth had billions of people. Advanced defenses. How could it fall?" Admiral Quental's voice continued. "The Krellian Empire has conquered most of the galaxy over the past 3,000 years. 27 species have been subjugated or exterminated. The Resistance Coalition is all that remains of the free worlds, and we are losing. We have days, perhaps hours, before our final defeat." Day looked around his bridge. Una's face was pale but determined. Myra was crying silently at her station. Tay's voice over the was thick with emotion. Nari sat rigid, her hands clenched into fists. These people had just learned that their ancestral home, the planet of their fathers and grandfathers, was gone. "Captain," Una said quietly, "what do we do?" It was a good question. They were alone now, truly alone. The last humans in a hostile galaxy. They could run, try to find some empty corner of space to hide in. They could try to survive, to preserve humanity's memory for a few more generations before the inevitable end, or they could fight. Day activated the ship-wide "Attention all crew. This is the captain. I know you've all heard the news about Earth. I know it hurts. It's supposed to hurt." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "We've been running for 180 years. Running from the wormhole collapse that trapped us. Running from death and failure and the cold darkness of space. I'm tired of running. Our home is gone, but we're not. We're still here. We're still human. And humans don't abandon people who need help." He looked at Una, who nodded. At Myra, who wiped her tears and straightened in her chair. At Nari, who gave him a fierce smile. "Send a message to Admiral Quental," Day ordered. "Tell him the Resilience and its fleet are joining the Resistance. If the Krellian Empire wants humanity extinct, they're going to have to work for it. On the other side of the battlefield, in the command center of the Krellian flagship, Commander Thexron watched the new vessel with growing concern. His intelligence officers were sending reports that made no sense. The ship's technology was centuries ahead of anything in the galaxy. Its combat capabilities were beyond anything they had encountered. Where did it come from? He demanded. "Unknown, Commander. But we've identified its origin markers. It's from Earth, a human vessel." "That's impossible. We destroyed humanity over a century ago." "Apparently not, sir." Thexron stared at the readings. One ship had destroyed 4 of his cruisers without taking damage. One ship had technology that shouldn't exist. One ship had just changed everything. "Send a priority message to the Empire," he ordered. "Tell them humanity has returned." and tell them we have a serious problem." Captain Hyundai stood on the bridge of the Resilience, staring at the endless darkness beyond the viewport. 180 years. That's how long they had been lost in the void of space, far from Earth, far from home, far from everything they once knew. The ship groaned around him, old metal straining under the weight of nearly 2 centuries of constant use. Engineer Tae Woo had performed miracles keeping the vessel running, but even miracles had limits. Behind them, 3 colony ships limped through space, their engines barely functioning. The other 4 ships of their original fleet were gone, lost to system failures, accidents, and the cruel randomness of deep space. "Captain, we're picking up another energy reading," Commander Yuna Kwan called from her station. Her voice carried the same exhaustion they all felt. 50,000 people had left Earth in 2667, full of hope and dreams of building a new world. Now barely 30,000 remained, born and raised on these dying ships. Knowing Earth only from old videos and fading stories, Day walked to her console. "Same as before?" "No, sir. This one's different. Much larger." Yuna's fingers danced across her controls. "It's a wormhole. A natural one, forming right in our path." Dr. Marisone looked up from the science station, her eyes wide. "Captain, this could be our chance. We could use it to find our way back to known space. Or it could tear us apart," Tae-Woo muttered from engineering. "We don't know where it leads. Could be anywhere in the galaxy. Could be nowhere." Day felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Every decision he made affected thousands of lives. These weren't just crew members anymore. These were families, children, elderly people who had never seen a real planet. They were all that remained of humanity's first attempt to reach the stars. "Show me the calculations," he said quietly. Myra brought up the data on the main screen. Numbers and projections filled the display, but the message was clear. Their fuel reserves were nearly depleted. Their life support systems were failing. The recycling systems that gave them air and water were breaking down faster than Tay could repair them. They had maybe 5 more years, 10 if they were lucky and careful. "We're dying slowly out here," Yuna said, voicing what everyone already knew. "At least the wormhole gives us a chance." Day looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had served with him for over 20 years. Before that, their parents had served under the previous captain. Generations had lived and died on these ships, always hoping to find a way home, always searching for that one stroke of luck that would save them. "Bring the ship to full alert," he ordered. "Recall all personnel from the colony vessels. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. All ships stay in tight formation." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Warning klaxons echoed through the corridors. Throughout the fleet, families gathered in safe zones, holding each other as they prepared for whatever came next. They had survived impossible odds for 180 years. They would survive this too, or die trying. Lieutenant Hannah Jin checked her fighter squadron. 12 small craft, patched together from spare parts and desperate ingenuity. They wouldn't do much good against a natural phenomenon like a wormhole, but she made sure they were ready anyway. That's what you did in deep space. You prepared for everything, even when preparation seemed pointless. "All ships report ready, Captain," Yuna announced. The wormhole swirled before them, a massive tear in reality itself. Beautiful and terrifying, it glowed with colors that shouldn't exist, bending light and space around it. Day had seen many wonders in his years of command, but nothing like this. He thought about Earth. Somewhere out there, humanity's homeworld still existed. At least he hoped it did. They had received no signals, no transmissions, no sign of other humans for 180 years. The silence was the worst part. Not knowing if Earth still stood, if humanity still thrived, if anyone even remembered the 7 colony ships that had disappeared so long ago. "Take us in," Day commanded. "All ships maintain formation. Stay close." The Resilience's engines fired, pushing the ancient warship forward. Behind it, the 3 colony ships followed like ducklings following their mother. They had been through everything together. They would face this together too, The wormhole grew larger in the viewport, filling their vision with impossible light. The ship began to shake as they crossed the threshold. Metal screamed. Systems overloaded. Tae-woo shouted commands to his engineering teams, fighting to keep power flowing to critical systems. Hull integrity at 80%, someone called out. Structural stress increasing, another voice added. Day gripped his command chair, his knuckles white. The light outside became blinding. The shaking grew worse. He heard the distant sound of hull plating tearing, felt the ship buckling around him. For a moment, he thought they had made a terrible mistake. They would die here, torn apart by forces beyond their understanding, and no one would ever know what happened to them. Then suddenly, impossibly, the shaking stopped. The light faded. The Resilience burst through the other side of the wormhole and into normal space, but it wasn't empty space that greeted them. Yuna gasped. Captain, sensors are showing thousands of ships. There's a battle happening. A big one. On the main screen, Day saw a sight that made his blood run cold. Hundreds of warships exchanged fire in a massive space battle. Explosions lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. Debris from destroyed vessels tumbled through the void. Energy weapons carved brilliant lines through space, and dying ships vented atmosphere in frozen clouds. Where are we? Myra asked, her voice barely a whisper. Unknown sector, Yuna replied, her hands flying over her console. Captain, we're receiving a transmission. Multiple transmissions. They've detected us. They're demanding we identify ourselves. Before Day could respond, proximity alarms screamed to life. A massive warship 10 times the size of the Resilience was moving toward them. Its hull was covered in alien script. This wasn't a human vessel. These weren't human ships at all. Captain, they're charging weapons, Hannah reported from the tactical station. Target lock on our position. Day felt his heart racing. After 180 years of isolation, they had finally found other intelligent life. And those other beings were about to open fire on them. All hands, battle stations, he ordered, his voice steady despite the fear clutching at his chest. Arm all weapon systems. Bring shields to maximum. The Resilience had been a colony escort vessel, designed to protect settlers from pirates and minor threats. It had never been intended for real war. But 180 years of survival in deep space had changed the ship. Tae-woo and his engineers had rebuilt it, upgraded it, modified it with technologies born from desperate necessity. The alien vessel opened fire, and humanity's first contact with the wider galaxy began with violence and fire. The Third Imperial Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Varro system like a wall of metal and death. 800 warships, each one larger than the Resilience, their hulls painted with the crimson and black of the Krellian Empire. From his command throne aboard the flagship Devastator, Grand Admiral Varthok smiled. This would be easy. Begin the advance, he ordered. Maintain formation. Destroy everything. The fleet moved forward like a slow tide, massive and unstoppable. Varthok had fought in 100 battles over his long career. He had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and earned his reputation as the Empire's finest military commander. This would just be another victory in a long list, but then his censor officer gave him unexpected news. Admiral, we're detecting the Resistance fleet. They're not running. They're moving to engage. How many ships? 212, sir. They've positioned themselves in a defensive grid around the inner system. Varthok laughed. They want to fight? Excellent. We'll destroy them all in one glorious battle. Signal all ships. Prepare for combat. What Varthok didn't know was that those 200 ships were nothing like the Resistance fleet he had expected to face. Every single vessel had been retrofitted with quantum-fold drives. Every ship had adaptive shields. Every fighter had a neural link pilot aboard the Resilience. Captain Day watched the enemy approach on his tactical display. His heart was pounding, but his voice was steady when he spoke. All ships, this is Day, remember your training. Trust your technology. Trust each other. Today we show the Empire that humanity doesn't die easily. Commander Unicorn sat at the tactical station, her mind already linked to the ship's systems. She could feel the resilience like it was part of her body. All weapons charged and ready, Captain. Then let's give them a surprise they'll never forget. All ships execute Plan Delta 7. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The Resistance fleet suddenly vanished. All 212 ships used their quantum fold drives simultaneously, disappearing from their positions and reappearing scattered throughout the Krellian formation. The Imperial fleet suddenly had enemy vessels above them, below them, behind them, inside their defensive perimeter. What? Varthok shouted, jumping from his throne. Where did they go? Find them. Sir, they're everywhere. They're inside our formation. The Resilience materialized directly above a Krellian dreadnought. Narayan's targeting systems locked onto the enemy vessel's shield generators before the Krellians even knew the humans were there. Railgun rounds tore through the generators and the dreadnought's shields collapsed. Target destroyed, Nari reported. Moving to next objective. The Resilience folded space again, appearing 5,000 kilometers away, behind a cluster of Krellian cruisers. This time, Hanajin's fighter squadron launched from the ship's bays, their neural link systems allowing them to move with inhuman coordination. Gold Squadron, engaging, Hannah called over the comm. Her 12 fighters moved like they shared one mind, dodging incoming fire that would have destroyed normal pilots. They struck at the cruiser's weapon systems with surgical precision. Flight Officer Rena High, Hannah's wingman, destroyed 3 gun turrets in as many seconds. This is too easy, she laughed over the squadron channel. They can't even track us. Captain Surin's converted carrier, the Horizon's Edge, sat at the edge of the battlefield, launching wave after wave of fighters. She had converted the old colony ship into a massive fighter platform capable of deploying 200 small craft. Every one of them had a neural link pilot. Launch Group 7, she ordered. Focus on the dreadnoughts. Stay in groups, watch each other's backs. The fighters swarmed over the Krellian capital ships like angry insects. Too small and fast to hit with heavy weapons, but deadly to expose systems and weapon arrays, Commander Jin Tae, a resistance commander who had learned to trust human technology, led a battle group of 12 retrofitted alien dreadnoughts against a Krellian formation. His ship, the Freedom's Dawn, now moved with the speed and agility of a vessel 1/10 its size. Fire quantum torpedoes, he ordered, the new weapons. Another human invention born from necessity streaked across space. They weren't just explosives. They were quantum state devices that could exist in multiple places simultaneously until they struck their target. The Krellian point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but the torpedoes simply existed. Around the defensive fire until they hit, explosions rippled across the Krellian fleet. Varthok watched his perfect formation fall apart. Ships were being destroyed or disabled faster than he could track. The enemy was everywhere and nowhere, striking from impossible angles, moving too fast to target. Return fire, he screamed. All ships, open fire. The Krellian fleet fired everything they had. Plasma bolts, missiles, energy beams, kinetic weapons. The space between fleets lit up with enough firepower to vaporize planets. It was an awesome display of destructive power, and it barely touched the Resistance fleet. The adaptive shields that protected every human retrofitted vessel absorbed the incoming energy and grew stronger. Ships that would have been destroyed by a single plasma bolt shrugged off dozens. When the shields finally overloaded, the quantum fold drives let ships simply disappear and reappear behind cover. Lieutenant Minho's marine units were stationed throughout the Resistance fleet, ready for boarding actions. When one Krellian cruiser got too close to a Resistance frigate, Minho saw his chance. Launch boarding pods, he ordered. 20 armored marines loaded into small, fast pods that shot across the space between ships. The Krellians tried to shoot them down, but the pods were too small and moved too erratically. They impacted against the cruiser's hull and burned through. The fighting inside the Krellian ship was brutal. The aliens fought hard, defending their vessel with courage and skill. But Minho's Marines had trained for this, had fought in worse conditions during their long journey through space. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, their armor sensors seeing through walls, their weapons never missing within 20 minutes. Minho stood on the Krellian bridge, his weapon pointed at the ship's captain. "Surrender or die? Your choice." The Krellian captain looked at his dead crew, at the unstoppable human soldier, and made the smart choice. "We surrender." The tide of battle had turned completely. The Krellian fleet, so confident just an hour before, was being torn apart. Ships tried to flee, but the quantum fold-equipped resistance vessels cut off their escape routes. Others tried to surrender, but the battle was moving too fast for organized capitulation. Varthok finally understood. He had been wrong. Technology did matter. And the humans had brought technology the Empire couldn't match. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Fall back to hyperspace coordinates." But Captain Day had anticipated this. The Resilience appeared directly in the path of the retreating Imperial fleet, accompanied by 50 other vessels. "Going somewhere, Admiral?" Day transmitted on open channels. Varthok's pride wouldn't let him surrender. "I'll ram you before I submit to humans." "I was hoping you'd say that," Day replied. The Devastator, Varthok's massive flagship, accelerated toward the Resilience. It was a desperate move, the action of a commander who had lost everything and wanted to take his enemy with him. But Yuna was faster. Folding 3, 2, 1. The Resilience vanished. The Devastator flew through empty space, and then the Resilience reappeared directly above it. Its weapons trained on the flagship's bridge. "Last chance." "Admiral," Day said calmly. Varthok looked at the human ship above him, at his fleet in ruins around him, at the tactical display showing 200 Krellian vessels destroyed or disabled. He had started with 800 ships. He had lost. "I surrender," he said. The words tasting like poison in his mouth. Minho's Marines boarded the Devastator and took the Admiral into custody. The remaining Krellian ships, seeing their commander captured, began surrendering in groups. When the smoke cleared, the Resistance had won the most decisive victory in decades. The Third Imperial Fleet was destroyed. Varthok was a prisoner. The Krellian Empire had suffered its first major defeat in living memory. Aboard the Resilience, the crew celebrated. They had done the impossible. 40 humans and a few hundred aliens had defeated an Imperial fleet 4 times their size, but Day didn't celebrate. He stood on the bridge looking at the display showing their losses. 30 ships destroyed. 2,000 Allied crew members dead. It was a victory, yes, but victories always came with a cost. "Captain," Yuna said quietly, "we're receiving transmissions. Dozens of them from all over the galaxy." "What kind of transmissions?" "Encrypted signals. From occupied worlds. Resistance cells we didn't know existed. They all say the same thing. They want to know if the rumors are true. If humanity really survived? If we'll help them fight." Day closed his eyes. One battle won, but the war was just beginning. And somewhere out there, on occupied Earth, humans might still be fighting. Might still be hoping for rescue. "Send a response," he said. "Tell them yes. Humanity survived. And we're coming to help." In the Krellian capital, Emperor Krelthax received the news of Varthok's defeat. His throne room fell silent as the report finished. The Third Fleet destroyed. 800 ships lost. An admiral captured. "Find Earth," the Emperor ordered. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Varos. The Liberation Fleet, as it was now called, had grown from 200 ships to 300. Every week more vessels joined them. Alien species that had hidden in the shadows, surviving in secret, now came forward to fight. The quantum fold drives and adaptive shields had spread across the fleet, turning desperate survivors into a real military force. But Admiral Honde, promoted after his victory at Varos, had only one destination in mind: Earth. The journey to humanity's homeworld took them through 12 occupied systems. At each one, they stopped to liberate the population and weaken the Empire's hold. It was dangerous work. The Krellians were ready for them now, had adapted their tactics, understood they were facing a real threat, but they still couldn't match human technology. At the Corval system, Commander Yuna Kwan led 50 ships in a lightning raid that destroyed an Imperial supply depot. At the Velkrin Nebula, Captain Su Rin's carrier groups wiped out an entire patrol fleet. Lieutenant Hanajin's fighter squadrons had become legendary, spoken of in whispers across the galaxy as the ghost wing that appeared from nowhere and vanished before the enemy could respond. Engineer Tae Woo had established manufacturing facilities on 17 liberated worlds. The production of quantum-fold drives had increased tenfold. Every freed planet became a new base, a new source of ships and soldiers. Dr. Mei Rasung had become the voice of the Liberation Fleet, broadcasting messages to occupied worlds. "Hold on," she said in transmissions that reached across the galaxy. "Help is coming. You are not alone." But as they drew closer to Earth, the fighting grew fiercer. The Empire was determined to keep them away from humanity's homeworld. They threw fleet after fleet at the Liberation Force, willing to sacrifice thousands of ships to stop the humans from reaching Earth. "Why are they so desperate?" Lieutenant Minho asked after a particularly brutal battle. "It's just one planet." Chief Scientist Gina Kwan, Yuna's sister, had the answer. "Because Earth is a symbol. If we retake our homeworld, if we prove that the Empire can be defeated, every occupied world in the galaxy will rise up. The Empire knows this. That's why they'll do anything to stop us." The final approach to Earth's solar system was a gauntlet of defensive positions. The Krellians had fortified the outer planets, turned Jupiter's moons into weapons platforms, and stationed the Imperial home fleet in Earth orbit. 2,000 warships, the largest concentration of military power in the galaxy, all dedicated to keeping humans away from their own planet. Admiral Day called a council of war aboard the Resilience. The senior officers of the Liberation Fleet gathered, human and alien, together. "We can't win a straight fight," Tactical Officer Narration stated flatly. 2,000 ships against 300. "Even with our advantages, the numbers are too steep," Admiral Quentel agreed. "We need a strategy that doesn't rely on direct confrontation." "We split the fleet," Yuna proposed, bringing up a tactical display. "A small strike force goes directly for Earth while the main fleet engages the home fleet here. Near Mars, we keep them busy, give the strike team time to reach the planet." "Who leads the strike force?" General Vex asked. Day didn't hesitate. "I do. The Resilience and 20 other ships. We break through to Earth, link up with any resistance forces on the ground, and disable the orbital bombardment platforms. Once those are down, the fleet can push through." It was a desperate plan, one that relied on speed, surprise, and a lot of luck. But desperate was what humans did best. The battle began at the asteroid belt. Commander Jin Tae led the main fleet in a frontal assault that drew the Imperial home fleet's attention. The fighting was intense, ships dying by the dozens on both sides. But it created the distraction Day needed, the Resilience, and its strike force used their quantum-fold drives to appear on the opposite side of the solar system, bypassing the main battle entirely. They accelerated toward Earth at full speed, weaving through defensive positions, fighting only when they had to. Hanajin's fighters screened the strike force, destroying missiles and intercepting enemy squadrons. Flight Officer Rena Hai saved the Resilience twice, shooting down incoming torpedoes at the last second. As they approached Earth, Day felt his heart ache. The planet looked so small from space, so vulnerable. Its oceans were still blue, its continents still green in places. But he could see the scars too. Cities reduced to rubble. Orbital stations turned into prison facilities. Massive strip mining operations tearing into the planet's surface. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Yuna reported. "From Earth, it's encoded with old Earth colonial fleet protocols." Day's hands shook as he accepted the transmission. A voice crackled through the static, speaking Korean with an old accent, one that reminded him of Earth before the long journey began. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Lee of the Earth Resistance. We've been fighting down here for 150 years. Please tell me someone out there finally heard our distress calls. Day's voice broke as he responded. Captain Lee, this is Admiral Han Day of the Earth Colonial Fleet, Vessel Resilience. We're coming home. The orbital bombardment platforms were massive structures, each one capable of destroying entire cities. The Krellians used them to keep the Earth population terrified and compliant. Hana's mission was to destroy them. Gold Squadron, Silver Squadron, follow me, she commanded. Her fighters streaked toward the nearest platform, dodging defensive fire. The neural link systems let them move as one. A single organism with 100 parts, they hit the platform's reactor with precision strikes. The explosion lit up Earth's orbit like a second sun. Lieutenant Minho's Marines had a different mission. While the space battle raged above, he led a drop assault directly onto Earth's surface. 50 armored soldiers in drop pods. Falling through the atmosphere like meteors, they landed in what used to be Beijing, now a Krellian prison city. The Marines moved through the streets, their advanced weapons tearing through Krellian occupation forces. Within an hour, they had linked up with Earth resistance fighters. Captain Lee was older than Day expected. Her hair white, her face lined with years of underground warfare. But her eyes were fierce and alive. We never gave up, she said simply. We knew someone would come eventually. How many survivors? Minho asked. Hard to say. Millions scattered across the planet in underground cities. The Krellians have been using us as slave labor, but we've been fighting back. Sabotage, raids, whatever we could do. Above them, the space battle reached its climax. The Resilience engaged the Krellian command vessel, a massive dreadnought that served as the Imperial Governor's flagship. It was the most heavily armed ship in the home fleet. All weapons focus fire, they ordered. The quantum torpedoes, rail guns, and energy weapons of 20 ships concentrated on a single target. The dreadnought's shields, powerful as they were, couldn't withstand the assault. They collapsed and the ship's hull breached in a dozen places. Emperor Krelthax, watching from his distant throne world, saw his home fleet crumbling. Saw Earth slipping from his grasp. Saw 2 centuries of conquest unraveling because of 40 humans who refused to die. He made his final move. Activate the planetary destruct sequence. If we cannot have Earth, no one will. The remaining orbital platforms began charging weapons designed to crack the planet's crust. They would turn Earth into a lifeless rock rather than let humanity reclaim it. Genequan detected the power surge. Captain, they're going to destroy the planet. Yuna's mind raced through the calculations. We can't stop all the platforms in time. There's too many. But Dr. Marasung had an idea. The platforms are networked. If we can access the central control system, we can shut them all down at once. Where is it? The Imperial Governor's flagship, the one we just disabled. They understood immediately. Minho, can your team board that ship? Already on it, sir. The assault on the Krellian flagship was the most desperate action of the war. Minho's Marines, reinforced by Earth resistance fighters, fought their way through the dying ship's corridors. The Krellians defended every meter. Knowing what was at stake, the battle reached the command center, where the Imperial Governor himself waited with his elite guard. The fighting was brutal and close, energy weapons at point-blank range, hand-to-hand combat when ammunition ran out. Minho faced the Governor in single combat. The alien was larger, stronger, trained in combat from childhood. But Minho had learned to fight in the corridors of failing starships, where every movement had to be perfect or you died. When it was over, Minho stood alone in the command center, bleeding but alive. I have access, he reported. Shutting down the destruct sequence now. The platforms powered down, one by one. Earth was safe. The Imperial Home Fleet, seeing their governor dead and their superweapon neutralized, began to surrender. Some ships tried to flee, but the Liberation Fleet had them surrounded. Others fought to the last, but they were overwhelmed by superior numbers and technology. By the end of the day, Earth was free. Admiral Day stood on the surface of his homeworld for the first time in his life. He had been born on the Resilience, had spent his entire existence in space. But standing here, feeling real wind on his face, seeing a real sky above him, He understood what his ancestors had fought to protect. Captain Lee stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. "Welcome home, Admiral,"